agenda, but it's often the things around it that give you the pulse of the business, and that if you could feel the tension if you were to walk around, but no one was walking around.
Welcome to the Value Factory Podcast, brought to you by OneAccord. We're all about helping businesses thrive and grow through leadership, strategy, and meaningful impact. Now, whether you're a seasoned executive or just starting out, our goal is to provide insights and inspiration to help you navigate your journey. Thanks for tuning in.
So there's an intersection of timelines.
Mm-hmm.
So then I begin in relationship with OneAccord as an observer. So I'm one of the network referral partners. I'm a commercial banker. I live out, and at that time I was focused on serving nonprofit sector organizations. I led a division, a team in a bank that was the nonprofit banking group. And so, Randall Dick and others were the OneAccord consultants that I was,
connected with, right?
Right. And Scott Smith was a guy that I was observing. I don't even know that I met you.
I may or may not have been I was traditionally at every mixer, and I would usually be the one that kind of filled the room.
Yeah.
Both in role, but just relationships.
So interesting. I may have met you, but because of knowing Saray and
Scott's CEO.
So there was my first introduction.
Right.
So it's 2015. If I just kind of take a 5-year block, we go, because I've,
Yeah. Well, can I intersect you here just to, because we're going down the same path.
Yeah.
So let's put it in these chunks, and you're saying these 5-year chunks in essence, right?
Yeah.
So we're in version 3 of 5.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Follow.
Right.
Yeah.
Revenue, profitable revenue. Now,
enterprise
value, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're about to go into 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 4 gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Very. I mean, it's all interesting, but 4 gets there are layers in here that
it gets very complicated.
Yeah.
Right. And confusing.
So if we just go high level in this kind of 15 to 20 era, this is the kind of the first iterations of OneAccord branching out. And the way I describe it is there's a straight path forward of consulting and enterprise value operators, putting people in as fractional and interim operators to achieve enterprise value creation. And then these 2 kind of offshoots. And the one in my mind always to the left is a private equity endeavor, and to the right is M&A advisory endeavor.
Correct.
Both of those occurred in this 2015 to 2020 era.
Correct.
Let's start with private equity.
So to fully, would you like me, you'll probably edit this out, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
Would you like me to give the fullness of the story during this time as it relates to OneAccord before I come back to season 5, which is longer than 2020?
Yeah.
Which is the refocus and clarity with you.
Yeah.
Because that's 5.
Yep.
Okay. So to go through the fullness of 4. Good.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Wow, we're doing really well. We're covering a lot of ground.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So let's go into this new chapter. So I'm going to give a bit of a story that I'll get to at the end of chapter 4. And at the end of chapter 4, I do what I've done once before. And that is I bring an independent consultant in to do a CSP on OneAccord with the belief that there's a lot of opportunity for us, and I want objective counsel, and I'm going to make myself accountable to it with both my wife as well as our team. Okay.
And this is again an instance where Amy is instrumental.
And I'll come to that as we go into chapter 5.
Yeah.
But in chapter 4, right? So this 2015 timeframe, and it was either in 14 or 15 that a client of ours, and I can say the name, Rainier Industries, they do windows and awnings, very good company, and their enterprise value was nil, and the owner wanted out, and he was working 60 hours a week, and it's kind of the precursor, but also kind of a poster child of increasing value that leads us then into a new endeavor. You talked about private equity, but that owner said to the team leading it and the regional managing principal, why don't you guys buy this? You know how to run it. You're doing a great job. And I want out. So why don't you just figure a way to buy it and we'll go from there? And now fast forward, we didn't buy it. Maybe a year later, could be a year and a half later, he said, I don't want to sell it. I'm having so much fun. I only work 20 hours a week. I've got all these great people in process. Like, why would I want out? And it just sold last year, and it was a very, very nice multiple. But that's long after we were there. But, you know, sometimes a person wants, they don't want what they're telling you they want. They want the relief from the pain they're experiencing.
Yeah. Yep.
So what they're saying is the symptom is causing, right, this pain, but we want to get to the root of the pain, not just the symptom, right? So anyhow, he says to us, would you buy us? So managing principals here, Northwest only. I thankfully still have a role. They let me come to the meetings, but I don't usurp Scott's leader. There's a lot of things I struggle with. I have lots of issues. Good therapist I can recommend. But I think you've seen I don't really struggle with trying to grab the baton back. I hope. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, it's true.
But Scott was fully empowered. And if he said you're not on the team, I wouldn't be on the team. I don't know what I would have done, but I would trust him in running the company, or I shouldn't have him be CEO. I can have him be president, which is go execute which CEO vision, right? But if you're in that seat, you need to drive the vision. So we're together and we have this discussion that ends up being a full day on our patio at home on a Saturday with us talking about, do we actually want to evaluate, could OneAccord buy companies? Because we're operating companies and we're building value. And what better credibility for the consultative side of the house to say, we actually own and operate companies. So we're not your traditional consultant. We're actually sitting in the running of companies. And so we decided to go down that path. And Scott, and I'll focus on Scott because there's a lot of other people involved that are really instrumental, but just there, he's CEO of OneAccord and managing partner with myself and one other in a new entity we spun off. So a separate company, but to you in the broader market, it's OneAccord.
Yeah.
Right. And we endeavored to make it clear it was a separate entity and is a separate entity. But to the broad world, OneAccord was now buying companies. Okay. So we go down this path and we bought a construction company first. Actually, we bought a commercial printing company, then a commercial construction company, then a manufacturing firm. There are some others, but it's key right here. At that point, the workload that Scott had in overseeing these different entities as an operating managing partner on behalf of the equity we had raised.
And the separate company is called Solomon's Fund.
Correct.
So Scott is managing partner of Solomon's Fund
While being CEO of OneAccord.
While being CEO of OneAccord. And Solomon's Fund has 3 or more portfolio companies. And so he's actively involved in managing the portfolio companies. Right. Yeah.
The workload starts to be too significant to do both well.
Yes.
Secondarily, or maybe primarily, but I would say it was secondary at the time, the equity dollars that had been put into these companies merited that the person that was running it made that their first priority.
Right.
And investors were not happy when Scott was spending time at OneAccord. Mm-hmm. Understandably.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, one of those companies really tripped, really had an issue. It's in the manufacturing space, which is where Scott had come from.
Yeah.
So Scott had built a company here that had been an acquisition. I mean, great case study for us. NIC Global was $12 million in revenue when he entered in as CEO in an acquisition working for the owner. Mm-hmm. And when he exited, I think they were 74 million. Mm-hmm. So he had grown it. Today, I think they're close to 200 million.
Wow.
So privately held, really good company. His tenure was done there, and he then came to OneAccord. But he had in his background growing a company from 12 to 74 million in manufacturing. We had bought a manufacturing company. Through a series of events, it became incumbent for him to become CEO of that company while running the portfolio. Okay. So at that point, not by design, but by default, he needed to exit OneAccord. So there was no perceived conflict of interest with him still being involved in OneAccord, even just as a consultant. Yeah. Because now he's full-time W-2 CEO of a manufacturing company and managing partner over the other companies.
Yep.
Right. So
how many other companies in the Solomon's Fund?
There were 6 acquisitions. One of them was a bolt-on to the first acquisition. So there's 5 operating companies.
And Scott is full-time CEO of one of the 5.
And managing partner over the fund. And I'm very involved too. Mm-hmm. So that's the private equity side.
Yeah.
It does give me great conviction on the power of what OneAccord does.
Yeah.
And the efficacy of its leadership. And I would just say that a few of those portfolio companies were actually saved by and turned by OneAccord team members that actually came into them. Mm-hmm. So this is one area, if I were to do over, I would do very, very differently than we did. But the intentionality, I think, was correct. It seemed like a natural move when business owners are asking us, we trust you, we like you, we think you'll take care of our people. You have operators, can you operate these companies? And many of the people who departed OneAccord over years were because they were doing such a good job running a company that the ownership came to them and made them just such an offer they couldn't refuse.
Yeah.
Again, very good relationships, nothing broken, but the repeated that talent leading companies has shown to create value for ownership. There's a ton of them out there, right? So we, in essence, were saying, well, we're doing it anyways. Maybe we should capture value. Mm-hmm. So it's an understandable, but all of a sudden to the world, we're buying companies.
It's a decision. If I use the reading the label from the inside of the bottle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to read the label from the inside of a pickle jar.
Yeah.
It's a decision that makes sense to the team that's here because it's not a big leap.
No.
But it's like one small step for man, but a giant leap when the company is consulting, providing operators, but then owning companies and that relationship is much different. Whereas OneAccord, we could today serve private equity very well with our operators on an interim or fractional basis.
Correct.
But when we take on the ownership of the company and we represent investor dollars and outside capital, the layers of complexity, and I've even said publicly that I don't think consulting companies, consultants should be in private equity. And there are people in the market who are in both, and they have a different opinion. And here's how I would clarify it. A private equity shop that does consulting on the side is different than a consulting shop that starts to buy companies.
Correct.
Even though the two are the same, they're vastly different.
Correct.
And so in this chapter 4 era, there is the private equity endeavor. 6 acquisitions, one's a bolt-on, 5 companies. Scott Smith goes to lead one. Darren Leonard goes to lead one. The
dean leads one. One of our principals.
Okay.
Goes to lead one of the companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
So OneAccord principals go to lead the companies that are in Solomon's Fund. Today, Solomon's Fund still exists.
Right. There's 2 portfolio companies remaining.
2 portfolio companies remain. What was the fate of the other 3?
So let me come back to that to just kind of tighten that season, right? To your point, it's what I'm finding is, so I'm running OneAccord now. Scott's like
okay.
Jeff.
Yeah, you got to step back in.
You got to go back in.
Mm-hmm.
No one disagrees, thankfully. Mm-hmm. So that's good. However, I have the same issue going on that Scott does to a lesser degree.
Managing partner of
Solomon's Fund. Right. I've raised capital. And so what I always do is I default to the most painful problem that needs to be resolved in any of the companies, including OneAccord.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's one of the portfolio companies that needs me for whatever it might be, that's where I go.
Mm-hmm.
This team, meanwhile, is like, we need a leader who's
the OneAccord team.
We need a leader singularly focused.
Yeah.
And you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I worked this many hours, but I can see this lends itself to why I brought in an objective third party. So I'll come to that. So we've got these portfolio companies. One absolutely crashes and is gone during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It was the way it was managed, but COVID, we didn't respond correctly. And I'm going to give you kind of one of the lessons that I think ties in for us today that we probably all agree to is we moved all the board meetings and oversight to Zoom versus being on site because people are like, well, you can't go there. Well, there were problems in the company that had we been doing our board meetings there quarterly like we were, and we'd spend the day walking around the shop and talking to employees, you would have absolutely picked it up.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to make an excuse for mistakes made because there were.
Yeah.
But it's also a lesson to me of the importance of relationship, of being face to face, of what happens around the water cooler, not just during the meeting. Teams, very effective. Zoom, same. You can accomplish like what's on that agenda, but it's often the things around it that give you the pulse of the business, and that if you could feel the tension if you were to walk around, but no one was walking around.
Yeah.
So that company still exists. So thankfully, and the people were able to retain their jobs, but it was a poor exit for the ownership. There's the first company that we bought, a strategic came along and said, we'd like to double your money.
Wow.
And a cash offer that'll close in 90 days, or no, 60 days. No contingencies, no earnouts, some holdbacks for adjustments. And you can either take it or we're going to buy a competitor and we're going to take you out of business. And they were our supplier, our main product supplier for what we were a reseller of.
Mhm.
And they decided they wanted to be a completely vertically integrated business, owning the equipment, the supplies, and that was the printing company.
Yep.
So it was the actual manufacturer of the commercial printing and ink saying, we're going to get into distribution and you can be with us or you can be gone.
Yeah.
So we'll void your contracts. And thankfully, it was a very nice offer. People did well.
Yeah.
The other two companies that are now remaining
Mhm.
continue to operate and will eventually have an exit. But we had a long-term strategy of a 10-year strategy, not a buy and flip, but
Yeah.
actually to build really good companies.
Mhm.
And so those companies continue on today. One is knocking the cover off the ball, and the other is like the Seattle Mariners today. So, but they're both, going along.
Yeah.
So that's where that went. Okay. So now I'm at OneAccord. My eyes are, met someone who has a lazy eye that looks, off to the side, right? So I'm always keeping an eye on the other businesses.
Yeah.
I'm here. So I decide to bring in an independent person. His name's
Okay, so 2015 to 2020, kind of 5-year block. We've addressed Solomon's Fund, the private equity.
not the investment bank.
Not yet. Scott Smith is out. Were there any other leaders other than yourself at OneAccord in that kind of, or was it just you?
Well, okay.
Like senior leaders, managing principals, like
Sorry.
who's? Yep.
Sorry. Okay. So in answering questions, you can ask, I'm going to give an example really quickly. One of the things I love and that tells me the Bible's true
Mm-hmm.
is that you'll have the same experience where other people are recording it, and what they record is not necessarily the same thing, but never in conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the aspects to me that says it's true is where they comment on the conflict of disagreement, and one's in the Garden of Gethsemane when Peter jumps up and cuts the ear off the Roman soldier, which is historically documented also in Roman text. So it's not just the Bible saying that. And what I like about that is one guy jumped up to do that. I'm not sure what the other 11 thought, but I doubt all of them thought it was a great idea. Right?
Yeah.
So they saw the same thing and they had different views. I'm giving you to my best recollection of what I'm giving you in time frame and was historically happening. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go on to other leaders, then I'll talk about private equity.
M&A.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually do the M&A and I'll come to the, okay.
Cool.
So on one hand, as you noted, was that left?
Yes.
We did private equity.
Yeah.
Good side. It's allowed many of our team to be involved in the actual running of companies. And many of the team members today that we have are also investors and have been helpful with those companies, but it gives them a real flavor as well as what the process of actually transitioning ownership and new ownership looks like and where it goes well and where there could be missteps, right? So it's given a number of people here firsthand experience.
Right.
They're not in those companies, they're investors, but they're with OneAccord.
Right.
That's been helpful. Okay. So we also see this tremendous bubble of owners wanting to transition. And the same thing happens, but in a different way, where owners say to us, our company, you're working with us. Could you sell us? Could you take us to market? This is a market driven expansion, just like the private equity was.
It's from inside the bottle. It makes perfect sense. It's
Right.
a half step away. Your experience, you've got the connections, the business.
And we have an internal team member who has actually done this himself with his own companies and helped represent companies through the process. John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we decided to go down that route. We set up a separate entity, OneAccord Capital Advisors. So totally separate cap table. I'm in ownership, but I'm not the only owner.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually bring in a couple of people to help build that investment bank and help companies go through the exit process. And I will say, and we're not in that business today. So as I say, this is completely, it's not self-serving. When someone's taking their life's work and they want to go through an exit, they should have professional representation.
Mm-hmm.
An easy example is if you have a nice home that's in something unique, you're probably better to have someone represent it as an agent because that's what they do. And odds are they can probably get you more money than it's going to take than in the fees based on their ability to market it and know how to negotiate. Okay. So it's all the more so if you have a private company.
Yeah.
Like, don't have your attorney do it. Don't have your wealth advisor do it. Don't have your best friend do it because they've sold a company. Have someone that's all they do.
Yeah.
We hired a couple people, put them in ownership, set up a separate company, and we would help companies go through that transition process. There were several that we did, like more than I can count on these fingers.
Mm-hmm.
But it more so confused the market. And now you're buying companies over here, you're consulting companies over here, and you're selling companies over here. And don't you have a conflict of interest if you're selling and consulting?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is yes, unless you completely disclose and make it really clear. But it still didn't bring clarity to the muddy water in the market in terms of the message of who OneAccord was.
There's a way to do something complicated correctly, but it's still complicated.
But thank you. That's so much better than I would have said.
Yeah.
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
So internally at OneAccord Consulting,
Mm-hmm.
again, trying to follow, if you look at a historical pattern with me, trying not to operate in a vacuum or on an island, I bring several of our experienced team members to form a managing partner team, of which I'm CEO of the company.
Mm-hmm.
But I have representation of different practices because, again, we've grown in the Northwest, right? We went through this time of starting over, but we've grown. We've got a good team. I'll give it 15.
Mm-hmm.
Billings are coming up, and I can say in, let's see, 2019 over 2018 was a 70% increase in revenue, and that kind of correlates to profit in this business, to a gross profit.
The numbers in this era towards the end of that 15 to 20 block are up and to the right. Year over year growth is
19 to 20 was 35% up, if I remember, in revenue. And in 20 Q1 was up, I think, about 35% over that. Mm-hmm. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So it's scaling again. It's working. Even though we've got these different confusing businesses, we have a good team that delivers well. They've been with us a long time, pretty good reputation in the market, a good client base, the mixers going on, all these things that are generating momentum. We're hosting some pretty big corporate events in this area.
Was the talent acquisition, the recruiting practice, was that developed in this 2015 window also?
Yes.
So we did permanent placement. So we would help our clients hire permanent positions. We would go in as interim, and then we'd have a way to backfill with permanent placement. So,
which we should do.
Yeah.
Whether it's someone else does it or we do it. The fact is you build the systems, the processes, then you have the right people. And we'll do the interim or the fractional, get it going, build it. backfill with someone often less expensive that can now continue with what's been built. Correct.
Right.
So that
So
practice
all
is
of these things are adding to growth while we've got some portfolio companies and a private equity under Solomon's fund, and we're starting up capital advisors and M&A advisory,
right.
albeit two separate companies. The market perceives this all to be OneAccord.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Messy.
Complicated.
Internal pickle jar, we can see it.
Yeah.
Correct. So I put together a managing partner team during this era, kind of the back end of that. Again, I will get time wrong, and if you go ask them, they'll probably say it was exactly this date because it was the only thing they were thinking, and I've got all these things that I'm thinking about. So I may be off in the date a little bit, but at the end of this 19, maybe 18, but I think 1920, I put a managing partner team together that represent these practices, like the talent acquisition being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we come into COVID, and I will completely get the numbers wrong. And you could go back to the accounting records and look at it. But of what I think is around, I think 20 engagements, and I think we said there were going to be 30 because there were some in the pipeline that looked like they closed. It went to one. So the good side is none of our existing clients stopped when COVID hit, but those contracts ran out over time.
And no one was hiring or making big strategic investment decisions.
Everybody just sat on their hands. Like, we don't know what's going on. And we were the same. So I thought this is a great time for us to take advantage. And I'm going to bring someone in to do a diagnostic on us to see how we're running and how we're doing. And I brought in a gentleman who's very well regarded, and he's particularly been the turnaround expert for Moss Adams and Clark Newber for years. And he's built, owned, and exited a couple of manufacturing firms of his own. He has his own technology firm today, which is extraordinarily valuable, but he loves to do kind of one-off dives into companies to help them get better and take a lot of what he's learned. He's in his late 70s and help apply it into companies. And it was to the chagrin of our own team a little bit, who said, well, we can do this ourselves. We know how to do it. And true, they do. I, again, just felt it was better to eat our own dog food, to have someone independent.
And they're inside the pickle jar, and they have been involved in making the decisions up until this point. So
Correct.
Getting an outside perspective.
They don't like.
Right. But is this now the third time that because there was the
second.
This is the second time where there's let's bring in.
You could add a third if you say our internal advisory council.
Right.
Yeah, yes. With the advisory council, but this is the third. And so in that, now this comes the Amy story.
Yeah.
I asked Mike, he said, I'm going to interview your entire team one-on-one. If I remember, it was 19 people. It was either 19 or 20. Because I'm going to interview them one-on-one. Then I'll come back to you with my set of recommendations. I want all your financials for the last, go back 10 years. I want your customer contracts. I want deliverables. I want to see what you do. I want everything. And he's like, I'm brilliant. Which if you know because I'm brilliant and I can dissect these and I'll know exactly what to do. Yeah. And I think there's a difference between confidence and ego. Yeah. And he carries a lot of confidence, and I believed him to be correct. So we did that. We gave him everything. He interviewed everyone one-on-one. But I asked the question, I said, Mike, could my wife do this with you? Could she be in every interview? And his response, classic. He goes, well, I don't know. I've never met your wife. He goes, how about I meet her?
Yeah.
He did. He goes, absolutely. It's great. He goes, why are you doing that? I said, I think I need the accountability. Yeah. But it would also help me to have her better understand when I'm talking about some of the issues I face. And it was extraordinarily helpful for us in working together through this season, because as I was talking about a certain issue in person, she understood the dynamics of the interplay of all these people. Like
Mhm.
there might be someone kind of misbehaving in the group,
Mhm.
and her natural response was, well, you need to eliminate that person if they're not with you.
Mhm.
And she comes from a big corporate background. Not incorrect, other than I said, well, I want you to watch how that interaction would affect the others, like a pinball
Mhm.
with the bumpers. And she came back. I remember one night at dinner, I was like, okay, I get it. It's not that simple.
Mhm.
This is all interconnected.
Yeah.
Right. And so Mike delivered his findings, which said in those, you need someone at the helm who is fully committed to the growth and development of OneAccord. And given the other companies, even though Scott's in that role, you default over there.
Mhm.
And he strongly suggested that's the right thing to do. He
Mhm.
said, you need to. You went out to raise capital, right?
Yeah.
So steward those, make sure they're doing well, but you need someone here. And this structure that you have with these managing partners kind of voting is not consistent with how you should be structured as an organization.
Mm.
He goes, it would be true if you had done a partnership like a law firm where they each bought in. So if you took your ownership and you wanted to sell that to them
Mhm.
to have a voting share, then it's appropriate. But he said, you're really not right aligned in your structure with
Yeah.
having that, because they're not owners, but they're trying to behave as they own and run it. And he saw some behaviors that may have been in the best interest of a certain subset of their overall company, but maybe not the best for the company.
Mhm.
And he said, so there's the way you're structured is not correct. So let me pause there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get into you. Do you want me to go down the Seth path?
Um, well, I think, for the purpose of like the wiki documentation, I think of some companies listing CEOs and eras, and I'm okay with it. I think to like Rick Worthland is a name
Yeah.
that comes up. So if there's anybody else that has been involved that's notable.
Yeah. See, geez, I forgot about Rick, who's amazing. I think Rick was in the pre-Scott. No, maybe. I'm even trying to think where that. But Rick came in as a managing partner,
Mm-hmm.
but it was really biz dev,
Mm-hmm.
very high level though.
Yeah.
But his title was as managing partner, but it was really in the drive business in this local market.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know him? Pacific Banking School.
Yeah, I think we met once or twice, and
Okay.
yeah,
Key Bank.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great guy. So do you want me to go down the Seth path? Because if so, then I should.
Yeah, and we'll be like we're basically at time. We're kind of at the end of chapter 4. We'll just have to keep.
Well, I
We'll have
think
to
we
do it
can.
again.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let me
wrap chapter 4.
So Mike said you need someone dedicated to steward OneAccord. And there are times where, based on our own convictions or in counsel, that where something seems clear, and either I'll speak for me, not anybody else, either I misheard or it worked out, but just not at all like I thought. So where it's very different. So there's a gentleman that I'd known here for years in business that I think to this day very highly of, extraordinarily competent. And his name's Seth. And so I invited Seth to step in and have me transition, like Mike and the team agreed. As a matter of fact, the team is extraordinarily reluctant to have me step out. because I think they felt very empowered in this leadership structure
Mm.
to run things. But he said, but it's incongruent. It's actually not going to work. And he delivered, by the way, the results of his finding to that, to everybody on the entire team. But first, he delivered it to that managing principal group at his office in Kirkland. He sat down and went through and said, this won't work. Here's why. And then we met down at the Drivers Club, which is a super cool facility of which he's a member. And the entire OneAccord team was there.
Hmm.
And he delivered all the findings. So just like we would do for a client, we would meet their management team. If the client requested we would do it with a broader company, we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's up to the owner. And I thought that was the right thing to do, to have this objective person. So he said there needs to be someone in the seat. The managing partner structure needs to go away. That was very difficult for some of those people. They felt betrayed. They felt unheard. A lot of justifiable feelings because they had been part of the team a long time, and now it was going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Seth came in to be CEO, and the simple way that I think is appropriate to describe a man of great heart, great integrity, and hard work, the way it was done, which I'll own, was absolutely not received by the team here, to the point, literally, that team, with one of those managing partners as a spokesperson, did a mutiny to say, it's us or him. These are some of the tough times in business that people, I want to be a business owner. I'm like, really? Do you know? And I said, then I'm going with him. I needed to back my leader.
Yeah.
Over time, not just the managing team, but the broader team showed a lack of being able to align with where the company was going under that leadership. And the company would cease to exist. It was going to be gone. Now, there would be some existing clients, but it became evident that either the way it was done, which again I'll own, or other external factors, whatever they may be, that we needed to take a shift. And so I then stepped back in to be the CEO with still the belief that there needed to be someone who had a tremendous vision and commitment for where the business needed to go, and a tremendous amount of diligence and discussion and counsel from Mike and from Amy and prayer and other friends around me and people that had been on the board years ago that really knew me and knew the history, like Barry Horn, that I went to say, okay, how do I deal with this? I want to be ethical. There's going to be hurt feelings through this, I understand, but what's again more important, the individual person, me or someone else, or the stewardship of the company? Because if it's for the stewardship of the company, something has to go a different direction. So at the same time all that transition had taken place, I was meeting with a friend of mine who was talking to me about how do you build a consulting practice and what works and what doesn't work. And I remember saying, you don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I really do. It's what I'm called to do. And I said, well, if you do, then I have some ideas of what works and things I would do differently in structure to be able to build a scalable, robust platform serving clients around the areas that he wanted to in his company. And so we had a meeting on our boat, and we had talked, and he had gone back, and I remember debriefing with Amy, just saying, I think I know who the right person should be. So when we met again, if I've got this chronology right, And I look to say, why don't you, Nick, be the CEO?
There's a step in between. That's so funny when you said, I had a friend that I'm driving down a road. I can't tell you the street, but I can picture the roadway ahead and the way the trees are coming across. I have this notion to send you a 2-word text message. And I think to myself, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's really awkward. That would be foolish of me. Brash even. But the thought doesn't go away for like 10 minutes. And so I look up and I'm like, all right, God, this isn't going to hurt anybody. It's not bad. The worst it can do is make me look like a fool. But if this is you, I'll do it. So I send you a text message that says, use me.
Yes.
And you
I remember.
Responded like right away. And it was, I think your question was, what do you mean right by that? And I'm like, I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
But I did. I mean, I had a heart, right? So it was in your office. Yeah. That you posed that question. The way I remember it, is not the way it was said, but we're playing the same game on the same field.
Mm-hmm.
We're just wearing different jerseys right now.
Right.
Let me trade mine for yours.
There was an action that you took where you created a vision presentation video.
Yeah.
Saying, here's what I see for the future.
Yeah.
Within a day or a couple days.
Yeah.
That showed up, and I cried as I'm like, there's someone that really has what it is that I believe is to carry this through, now chapter 5, well into the future, that I'm partnered with, that has had the burning vision in him for years and now has the place to do it. And it was abundantly clear that you are the right person for that opportunity that's significant, profound in impact and the difference that it could make. And so today we sit here now.
Yeah, we're almost 2 years on the other side of that conversation, if you can imagine that. It was the summer of 23. We kind of shook hands on the crawl phase shortly before Ariana's and my wedding in August of 23, knowing that we would be on honeymoon and back November. So that's when we got into the walking phase for
Right.
November, December.
Right.
Let's hang out in the office, see if everything feels right.
Mm-hmm.
January 1, 24. Let's run. And so we're getting close to a year and a half on the other side of that. Chapter 5. We'll have to save that for the next conversation, right, because we've spent almost 3 hours talking, and it's awesome.
Flew by.
Yeah, I love you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was awesome.